the JNF Victoria President, Stephen Salomon, he's somewhere here, I see him. And of course, our Executive Director, our lovely Executive Director, Lana Maisels, who's led this team impeccably throughout this whole procedure and process. And thank you all for being here today. You all been before, so the rules are that we keep everybody on mute so that there's not a lot of background noise. We can hear the wonderful speakers, and then you are more than welcome to ask questions at the end. Just put up your hand and we'll let you speak. I'm sure you all know me by now. I'm Jackie Chait. I'm the Legacy Manager for JNF Victoria, and I always say that leaving a bequest is a wonderful, benevolent thing to do, a shining example to children, to grandchildren. And yeah, if anyone ever would like a confidential chat with me, feel free to call me. We can have a virtual coffee or a glass of wine. And the hot off the press today is our gala event. You've probably all received the flyer, the invite. We've got a stellar cast of unbelievable speakers, entertainers, and that's going to be a free event on the 1st of September. You don't have to dress up, you can drink, and you can sit in the comfort of your own home. So that will be wonderful. Something we can all treasure and enjoy forever. Today, we have two incredible speakers to enlighten us. I want to thank you both so sincerely for being here on a fast day. I mean, Tamar's just starting and Rabbi Channen's already well on his way to, you look amazing for someone who's been fasting. Is this normal for you?
It's a good day. It's a good day.
It's a good day. It's a good day. So we will start off with Rabbi Channen. Rabbi Channen is a close friend. He's a mentor to myself, to my family, and pretty much to anyone who he comes across. He is spiritually connected, inspiring, and above all, he has this unique ability to resonate with the younger demographic, the millennial demographic, and pretty much every other age group. Rabbi Channen is born in Gush Etzion and spent his life learning and teaching the wisdom of Torah. He is passionate about inspiring others to challenge themselves, to learn more, to become more. And he was the rabbi of the Das congregation in Sydney. And as I said last time, lucky for Melbourne, he took on the role of head of student engagement for Awesome Victoria. So we're lucky to have him here. As I mentioned as well last time, that he performs miracles. He steers and orchestrates learning in such a way that you climb on board, you look forward to the journey, and he is amazing in igniting the spark and the desire in the youth to learn and to explore a spiritual realm, as opposed to sort of being complacent and instant gratification. So his lectures are just awesome. And without further ado, Rabbi Channen.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really special to speak to such a big crowd, and a crowd that comes on time. This is unbelievable. It came on at 5 minutes early and everyone was, quite a bit of people were on. Not used to that. I'm used to usually waiting. Okay, so very nice to have everyone today. So I want to start off with a classic story on Tisha B'Av, so classic that you probably, most of you know it. And I want to go through it and give it maybe a little bit of a different understanding from what we had till today. And maybe we could take a message with ourselves. Who knows, maybe it will bring us a little bit closer to each other throughout this journey we're going to go on together. So we have to go back in time to the Gemara in Gittin, which mentions a story that happened. Now, I could relate to that story, even though it was a story that happened before the destruction of the Second Temple. And the story goes as follows. It says, on Kamtza and Barcamps, Jerusalem was destroyed. And these were two men. One guy's name was Kamtza, a funny name, but that's the name, Kamtza. And the other name was Barcamps. And the story goes that there was a man that was having a meal. Someone was having a banquet. And in his banquet, he had, his friend was Kamtza, his enemy was Barcamps. So I didn't confuse anyone yet, right? So the banquet he was doing, he wanted to invite his friend Kamtza. So he sent his butler to go get kamta to join in the banquet. The butler obviously was a little bit all over the place, and instead of going and getting kamta, he went to get bar kamta. Now this wouldn't be a big mistake. The only problem is one was an enemy and one was a friend. So he invited the enemy to the banquet of Barcamps. And when I say enemies, we're talking about guys that are not talking to each other, you know, what we call family politics, I guess. Something very harsh and deep. So Barcamps arrives to the feast and to the banquet, and he sits down to the meal. The host walks around seeing the guests, and he sees there his enemy. And he says, the enemy is here. What is he doing here? So the enemy obviously realizes something went wrong here. He thought he was invited, but I guess not. And he turns around to the host, to the Baal Habayit, as we call him, and he says to him, I'll pay for my meal. Okay, how much is the meal? What, $200? I'll pay for it. So the host says, I don't need your money. Leave. So he says, you know what? I don't want to leave. I will pay for half of the banquet. Half of the banquet is quite a bit of money. If you're having 400 people at a function, I mean, JNF would love someone to pay for half of the banquet of JNF of a dinner or something like that. But no, he has to leave. They don't want him there. So then he turns around and he says, okay, I'll pay for the whole thing. I'll cover all costs, all catering, the venue, everything. So the owner, the person having him over, says, no, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Leave. And he grabs him by his hand and he takes him out. Barcamps gets so angry. He turns around and he says, all the rabbis were there. No one said anything. They obviously were very comfortable with this. And he goes to, and he goes to Rome, and he says, the Jews betrayed you. And he says, how would I know? He brings a sacrifice, and he brings the sacrifice. He makes a blemish on the sacrifice. He cannot sacrifice it on the altar, on the Mizbeach in the temple. And it shows that he betrayed the Caesar, and the Caesar decides he's sending his army to fight against the Jews. And that was the beginning of the destruction of the Jewish people in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. So we see from this, everyone sees that story and says, wow, you see what happens when people are fighting, you embarrass someone, you cannot kick someone out of your feast. There's two questions I want to ask on that story, and then maybe we'll give a different understanding. And the two questions are as follows. Question number one, why does the Gemara say that it was Kamta and Bar Kamta that destroyed Yerushalayim? If you ask me, it was either the rabbis that kept their mouths shut. Even though I'm a rabbi, I'm happy to say that it was the rabbi's fault for keeping their mouths shut, or the host for kicking him out. What are you kicking the guy out and embarrassing him like that? But the Gemara says that it's Kamta and Bar Kamta. Why is it Bar Kamta? I mean, obviously he should have calmed down and not go and act out. But in the end of the day, Bar Kamta was humiliated in public. And that's a horrific thing, as we know. The Gemara tells us that someone that embarrasses someone in public, it's as if he killed him. It's as if you killed someone when you embarrass someone in public, because they wouldn't want to be there. He would wish the ground would swallow them. If anyone here experienced being embarrassed in public, it's horrific. It's very difficult to deal with. It's very, very painful. So why is Bar Kamta the big problem here? So I want to give a different understanding. And the understanding is as follows, that Bar Kamta got invited. Now, if I got invited by an enemy to a feast, to a banquet, I would think to myself, why is he inviting me? Why are you inviting me to your daughter's wedding? Why are you inviting me to your birthday if I'm your enemy? So the answer is you probably want to make up with me. It's probably an olive branch. Want to make peace. That's probably what's going on. So you get on your clothes, you put on your nice clothes, and off you go. You arrive to the venue, and what do? If it's your enemy that put out an olive branch to you, what do? You go over to the host and you say, I'm so happy we're making up. We haven't spoke for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I'm so happy. I always wanted to fix this problem in my life. It's bothering me for so long. I'm so happy. And the guy would obviously be shocked. He wouldn't know that you were even invited. It was a mistake. And then let's see what would happen. But Barcamps, where did the host find him? The host found him sitting down and eating. Barcamps, what are you doing? When someone puts out an olive branch for you, go over, say, you know, I'm also sorry. I never should have said that, or I never should have done that. But that's not what happened. He sat down to eat. So the host comes over and says, what is the enemy doing here? Now Barcamps' mind starts working and he says, wait a second. Obviously, there's been a mistake here. So what would Barcamps do? He should turn around and say, you know what? Let's forgive each other. I'm here. Let's make peace. Obviously, it was meant to happen that I got invited. We can fix things. Let's start talking to each other. But Barcamps does not do that. He says, I'll pay for my feast. So he says, I'm not interested in you paying. I'll pay more money. No, not interested. I'll pay the whole thing. Barcamps, one thing he's not willing to do, and that is to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for hurting you. Barcamps will pay thousands of dollars for a banquet that's not even his. Don't get me to say I'm sorry. Because to get rid of all the embarrassment of having to get kicked out of the venue, all you have to say is, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know we shouldn't fight. Let's get on. Let's move on with what we had. But Barcamps cannot say I'm sorry. Tells us the Gemara on Kamsa and Barcamps Yerushalayim was destroyed, because when people can't say they're sorry, then we have a problem. And that's where fights start. There's a famous question they ask. Why is it that when adults say to each other, I'll never talk to you again, or when an adult says, stay out of my life, I don't want to meet you ever. How it works with adults, it's kept. For years, they don't talk, they don't see, they avoid each other at family simchas, at whatever it is. But two kids, little kids, 5-year-olds, have a fight and say, I hate you. You know, sometimes a kid comes to the mother and says, I hate you. 3 minutes later, he's sitting on his mother's lap, hugging her, kissing her. What happened? What happened? Isn't he the immature one? Isn't the kid the immature? And the kid, when he says something, he should keep it for long? And the adult is the mature one, and the adult should move on and forgive about what happened? What's the difference? The difference is an adult, I'll be right, but I'll be miserable, but I'll be right. I'll be miserable, but I'll be right. But a kid, I'll be wrong, but I'll be happy. I want to be happy. So I'll be wrong, but I'll be happy. So we as adults, we rather be miserable, but we'll be right. And that's something that happened with Barcamps, so we learn from this. Don't be miserable and be right. Be happy and be wrong. Much better. That's what happens. Families fall apart from this. Siblings not talking to each other, not talking to the aunt, not talking to the uncle. Why? Because someone said something he shouldn't say. I want to share with you a story about two brothers and end with this. I don't want to run out of time here. So the story goes as follows. One brother was religious and one brother was modern. The religious brother came to the modern brother's house and they were hanging out with each other. He was helping him out. And the wife of the more secular or modern, however you want to put it, his wife came into the room and she changed. She went upstairs, she changed, and she came down more casual, I guess. Now, the religious brother didn't like that. So he went home and he called his brother and he says, look, I can't come over to you if your wife is going to dress not appropriately. She has to dress modest when I'm there. You know, it's not right. Now, that's the wrong thing to say. No one should ever comment on someone else's wife on her level of how she's dressed, tznius-wise, modest-wise. It's not a smart thing to do. But he did it. He obviously didn't ask someone for advice on that one. And the brothers stopped talking to each other. They stopped talking. One brother says, till he doesn't apologize for calling me and telling me this, I'm not talking to him. The other brother says, I have nothing to apologize about. His wife should treat me with some respect. She knows I'm a religious guy. When I walk in, she should dress. She knows I was there. She went upstairs and changed. She should treat me with respect. Big argument. For months, they weren't talking on such a thing. They weren't talking. These are brothers. Till unfortunately or fortunately, there was a scare in the family that someone is going to die, a young man. It was a scare because thank God nothing happened there. The brother, the religious brother that went to watch the kids of his sister when her husband was in intensive care, suddenly realized life is very short. No one should think that they're there and their ego and everything else. And on the way back home after watching his nieces and nephews, he called his brother and he says, I want to apologize for the way I spoke about your wife. And the other brother responded with, yes, don't worry, no, it's not a big deal. I'm sorry I made a big deal out of it. And they made peace and they sorted it out. But what you see is, you know why you rather be right but be miserable? It's because our ego. Because our ego is so strong, but we have to understand we're much bigger than our ego. Self-esteem is to understand how big we are, and therefore we have no problem to be wrong. We have no problem to be wrong because that does not destroy us. That does not make us less people, less worthwhile. It makes us worth more when we're able to turn around and say, you know what, I'll be happy, but I'll be wrong, and not I'll be miserable, but I'll be right. It's as simple as that, but unfortunately we have a strong ego and we struggle, and many times we build up all these stories that if I say I'm sorry, then next time, and who knows and what. But I've seen in life personally that when you say you're sorry, things dissolve so easily. And that's what we have to take from the story about Barcamps to bring us all together in that way. But that's the destruction of Jewish people. That's the destruction when we fight family politics, but even just in the community. But family politics are also very dangerous. But in general, we have to learn to appreciate who we are. And if we do that, then we can say sorry very easily. Okay, thank you very much.
Shkach, Rabbi, shkach. That was amazing. And people can ask questions at the end. I will go straight on to our amazing speaker live from Israel, who is Tamar. Hello, Tamar. I think she's still... how is everything going in Israel? I'm going to just introduce you quickly. I want to thank you so much for being with us and for an early start to your day and, you know, a somber day, and for getting up early to be with all of us here. It's a great honor and a privilege. Tamar is a modern Orthodox superwoman. She is the wife of Noam, yes, and the mother of Orion, is that correct? Orion, Hillel, David, and Akiva. In her professional life, she is currently an executive recruitment manager, and she has worked for the Israeli Secret Service for 9 years previously, and prior to that, Teva Pharmaceutical Industries. Due to her modern Orthodox upbringing, she's very passionate about studying Torah. She's lectured at the London School of Jewish Studies and published a book about the Parsha of the week. And if I'm correct, is it called Uverachta B'chaim? Uverachta B'chaim, the name of the book.
Correct.
Yofi. And so Tamar will be talking to us today live from Israel. Welcome, Tamar.
Thank you. Thank you. Great pleasure meeting you all. I think it's one of the only wonderful things about this virus that we can actually connect, because before that, you guys were there and we were here, and we didn't think about that option. And because we've started Zoom all over the world, then suddenly it became an option, and it's a wonderful thing for us. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Rabbi, for your very important things. I've never thought of this point of view of him not asking, not apologizing and not saying sorry. I think it's a very, very strong message. I'm sure that in Australia, similar to Israel, I've been to Melbourne, beautiful, gorgeous place. You guys are very lucky. And I feel that currently it is something that is around the world, that we're going through a very difficult time. We see pictures from everywhere, from New York, from Rome, and we see these awful big trucks with all these bodies, and you suddenly realize how huge this pandemic is and what great horror it brings around the world. And the day of Tisha B'Av, finally, we get a request to cry, to mourn, to sit down and realize that we need to grieve, that we've lost something that is bigger than us, that is bigger than our community, that we miss chocolate without ever tasting chocolate. And it's a difficult thing to miss such a place without ever being in it. I've never been in the Bet Mikdash. Personally, I'm a vegetarian, so, you know, sacrificing animals is not really my world. And I'm being quite honest, I'm not very connected to Bet HaMikdash. I've never been in it, I've never smelled it, I've never missed it, nothing out of these. So I'd like to bring a different point of view of what is a current Bet Mikdash. Because if we have something in the Torah that is here inside the Torah, then it's forever. Then it's impossible that it has nothing to say to me. It must have a message for me. And is it okay if I do a share screen so I can show you the text? Okay, so hopefully it will work. Yes, here it is. And so you can see the text with me. So I'm right here in the middle. Maybe I'll make it a bit bigger. Here, this is better. At his book Netivot Shalom explains the Admor from Slonim. By the way, it was his Yortzeit like 2 days ago. The building of the Mishkan parallels to the building of the private Mishkan of each and every Jew, his own personality. A person decides to build his own building of personality and advance in spirituality, but then he falls, he fails, and he gets up again. These repetitive fallings might despair a man and make him give up, but the Torah reinforces him and tells him, here, look, even the Mishkan was erect and dismantled again and again, twice and 3 times a day. It took time until Moshe could build it and stabilize it. Don't give up from the falls. You fall, get up and build yourself again. If you'll continue and you won't despair, your personality will be a remarkable building. According to the Netivot Shalom, the current Mikdash that we have is within us, is inside our hearts. The Rabbi from Kotsk is asking, where is HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Where is God? Where is he located? And he answers, wherever he's allowed in. So if we allow Hashem into our hearts, if we create, you know, a big surrounding due to our work on our different midot, on our own personality, on our virtues, if we become better human beings, that's exactly where Beit HaMikdash will be, within our hearts. This is the importance of that day. Not only sitting and dwelling over what we've lost, but rather to start and learn and see and think, how can I, Tamar, 2020 here in Tel Aviv, can do something in order to bring back a new Bet Mikdash, to create a better connection between Am Yisrael and Hashem. How do I do that? And the only way to do it is to work upon myself, is to become a better person, is to be more patient towards my kids, you know, not to get so upset when they don't do their homeworks or they're not on time, or, you know, to start and think about all these reactions and how it is that I'd like to be and what kind of person I want to be. This is the importance of that day. It is about dwelling. It is about being sorry in regards to all the pain in the world, not only ours, because in every generation that the Beit Mikdash hasn't been built up until now, it is as if the destruction had happened today, now and here. And I feel personally in this year, we also lost a member of the family who was quite young. And for us, I think it's a global thing. I think that a lot of people feel that this is a very, very difficult time, not only for the Jewish people, not only everything that is happening in Israel with, you know, a lot of demonstrations, and a lot of people are feeling quite angry with the government, etc. It's all political, and I won't go into it. But I'm saying a lot of people are finding it very, very difficult time. And the way to make it better is actually to find the center of our homes. These quarantines and all these restrictions of not walking away more than 100 meters from your home, wearing a mask, it's all putting you back inside. And the question is, what do you do? What kind of person you are in your own home? How do you react? How quickly do you lose your patience? How do you talk to your partner? How do you talk to your kids? How do you talk to the people surrounding you, to your community? This is the main thing. This is where Hashem will be, in our connections between us two. One more message I'd like to bring, and it's not a message from me, it's a message from Rabbi Akiva. There are 4 different stories in the Gemara, at least 4 that I know of, and I'd love the Rabbi to correct me if I'm wrong. In regards to Rabbi Akiva, viewing a destruction, viewing something that is horrific, that is difficult, understanding how hard this is, and yet laughing. And it's quite amazing. And the story that connects to today, to the destruction of the temple, is when he walks with Rabban Gamliel. I'd like to be accurate, so I've got it right here in front of me. Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Akiva. And how do we know that actually this is the young Rabbi Akiva and not the great teacher Rabbi Akiva? Because he's mentioned last. And more than that, Rabban Gamliel has the name Rabban to teach us that he's head of Sanhedrin, he's head of the Beit Midrash currently. So they're all walking together on the road, and they get closer to Yerushalayim, and once they realize they do, they torment, they tear their clothes, their turbans. And Rabbi Akiva does that too, meaning he knows very well that this is the destruction of the temple. These are very, very difficult times. And they get closer, and suddenly they see a fox walking out from Kodesh HaKodeshim, the holiest of holy. Now, let me remind you that this place has Zara Karev Yumat. No person is allowed to walk in, to the extent that on Yom Kippurim, the great Kohen Gadol walks in, and he's got a string that is connected to his foot, so that if Chas v'Shalom he dies inside, they can pull him out. To that extent, no one is going to bring out his body, but rather it's going to be pulled out. And so they get closer and they see a fox walking out and in this place. And immediately they start crying, except for Rabbi Akiva. He starts laughing. And they turn to him and they say, Rabbi Akiva, lama ata mesachek? Why are you laughing? And he, as a good Jew, answers with a question, why are you crying? And they say, such a holy place, and we saw a fox walking in and out. We won't be crying? And he says to them, look, we know that there are 2 different nevuot. 1 second, sorry. 2 different
prophecy.
Exactly. Thank you for that. I don't know who it was, but thank you still.
Yeah.
2 different prophecies. We have Uriah and we have Zechariah. I won't take you into the specific verses, but just to explain, Uriah is talking about the first prophecy of the destruction. And Zechariah is talking about the second prophecy of having kids and old people in Jerusalem laughing and playing, and with Jerusalem starting to rebuild itself. And so he says, Rabbi Akiva, until I saw with my own eyes that Uriah was correct, that the destruction had happened, that it's all completely ruined, I wasn't sure that the second prophecy is actually going to happen, that Zechariah is correct as well, that we will have the redemption, that we will have another temple, that Jerusalem will start to rebuild again. That is the beauty of Rabbi Akiva. He brings a whole different way of looking at life and at reality. And he says, yes, this is the destruction. Absolutely. It's horrific. And we were taken away, awful things. And definitely, yes, this is very, very difficult. But we have a responsibility towards the future. We can rebuild. We can redo. We can recreate. We are here now. And you guys are here now in your own community. And you care. Therefore, you're all on Zoom in your afternoon. It's an amazing, wonderful power. You're all together there. It's a great notion. I think if this is not the rebuilding, then what is? As Jews, we have a state. Even if you don't live in it, we have a state. It's a new thing. It wasn't there 100 years ago. Only 100 years ago. And with this notion, Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope for the entire Jewish nation around the globe to be better. And all people, I want to start seeing, these beautiful pictures that we used to see on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or everywhere in regards to Italy and to New York and Paris, to reflourish, to become again beautiful as it used to be, and even more so. And for us, the Jewish people, to have peace within us, because it's interesting about the circles of peace. In my eyes, it's only my opinion, and if you disagree, then you'll tell me later, and I'm happy to hear. Peace works in circles, and these circles, they move around and they change by their qualities and their strength and how big they are. I'll explain. So the very first circle is me with myself. The question of what happens when I put my head on the pillow in the evening or late at night and I close my eyes. Am I happy with my doings? Am I happy with everything that I've said, with the way I've reacted, with the way I've treated others or treated myself? First circle is with me with myself. Another circle is me with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Hashem. Where am I standing in order to everything that he's asking me to do? Am I in a good place? Am I walking forwards? Am I walking backwards? Another circle is me and my partner, my beloved husband. Am I treating him nicely? Are we talking to each other nicely? Another circle is me and the kids, me and my siblings, me and my parents, and so on and so on. Me and my community, me and the community in Melbourne. All these circles, they grow and they get smaller, but due to everything that I'm doing. And these circles, they affect each other. If I am with peace with myself, then it will be easier to be in peace with my husband. It will be easier to be in peace with my kids, and so on and so forth. These circles are extremely important, and we need to look after them. As the Netivot Shalom says, firstly, we take care of the connection within us, and the way that we treat others, and the way that we talk, and the small Bet Mikdash that we put inside our hearts. And we let Hashem in. And then slowly but surely, we grow with the peace. And we bring benefit and better things to others surrounding us. So I wish you all peace on all the different circles in your lives. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we should meet each other. And please say hello once we're all here when Mashiach comes and we meet on Mount on Har HaBayit. And You know, it's interesting. It's something that it's very easy to believe when you're a child, and then once you grow, it changes these beliefs, and you kind of need to re-earn it, and get back, as the Chassidut says, tmimut shniya, a better level of being honest and clean-hearted. And so I wish you all a lot of great things and wonderful news in your lives.
Amen. Amen. You can unmute. Everybody can look at the hands. Clap and clap, 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 clap. Questions? Anybody would like to ask a question? Just put up your hand or unmute yourself and just introduce yourself so we know who's speaking and what you're saying and who you're addressing your question to. Anybody? Lily?
Lily's got one.
I just want to say thank you to Rabbi Channen and Tamar for absolutely beautiful, meaningful shiur, and hope we can all learn and become better people from listening to both of you. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Hi.
Yes, sure. Maya?
Hi, I just want to say thank you for this wonderful shiur. This concept of circle of life is so simple, it's so strong and so deep and meaningful. And I actually wrote down all the little points you mentioned. And it's so easy to see how easy we can be happy, to have peace within ourselves, and then it circles towards peace, towards husband, kids, family, and community. Easy, but I think we have to work at it. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not saying, you know, also maybe I should have mentioned it. Thank you for saying that. That also in regards to the view of Rabbi Akiva, I'm not saying that it's an easy thing to do. And obviously, you know, also when he sees the destruction, he tears his clothes. So I'm not saying, you know, it's an immediate reaction of actually laughing at difficult things. And as you say as well in regards to these circles, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a work for a lifetime. And that is what we do, all of us. We always work upon these circles of peace. And it's extremely difficult. But I think it's always a matter of making sure what it is that you're dealing right now, in the here and now. That's another thing that the pandemic has taught us. You know, we personally, I'm just telling our story. We recently moved. We were in relocation in London for almost 3 years, and we came back to Israel and to Tel Aviv, center of Tel Aviv. And we moved from a 3-story house, huge, with a wonderful garden in Hampstead Garden suburb, really fancy, really, and into a 120 meters apartment in the center of Tel Aviv. Yay! With a very, very small porch. Now, we had no idea we were about to be quarantined. No one knew about Corona. And so, you know, once you don't realize that, and I used to have my own floor with my husband, just the two of us in a floor by our own, you know, and 3 different floors, rooms for everything, 2 bedrooms for guests. So we had plenty of room, but not now. And suddenly we were all together in one small apartment of 120 meters. And these circles, I really got to think of, because suddenly everything was much, much smaller. And suddenly we had to respect each other and to find space within our hearts. It wasn't about physical space. It was about the space and the respect that we find for each other. So as you said, Maya, thank you so much for your comment. I agree. It is very difficult, but it's a lifetime worth of work. And I think it's worth it.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Michelle? Michelle, unmute Michelle, Renee. 1 sec, Michelle, you unmute.
There you are.
There you go, start again.
Thank you very much for today. You're so inspiring, and it couldn't have come at a better time, what we're going through, and it's a relearning of ourselves and of our being it was breathtaking. And I thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Michelle.
This
Thank you,
year.
Michelle, for the warm words. Thank you.
Anyone else has a question? Morris, you were typing a few things. Unmute Morris, 1 second.
I think Esther had a question as
Oh,
well.
sorry, Esther. And then we'll come back to Morris.
I'm trying to unmute.
We can hear you.
You can, right. I think the shiur is fantastic, and thank you very much. It's been difficult for me to get onto Zoom, but finally I got on to hear it.
Well done.
I also want to ask you, don't you think that there is a similarity with the circle, what you're saying about the circles of life? There's another way of looking at it, positivity in life, in everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we see, you know, a lot of it is about our interpretation for reality, meaning also in the Rabbi's story.
Yeah.
It's not so much about the reality of what had happened one step after the other, rather the interpretation that they put in. And
Yes.
had they been positive, and had they been sorry, and had they been egoless, as the Rabbi said, then absolutely, we would have been somewhere else. For me, that wonderful story, as I said before, the Rabbi had mentioned a new way of looking at it, and I've never thought of that perspective, and I'm thankful for that. For me personally, that story is about the importance of these small connections. Look, it's a discussion between two people that had destroyed the temple completely. So if they can destroy, can I rebuild? Maybe if I'm kind, can I rebuild? Please? Can we make this better just by being kinder to each other, by being bigger people, by being positive, as you say? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your shiur. I enjoy it immensely.
Pleasure. I think Morris wanted
Yeah.
to.
I came in a little bit late, and I missed the first 10 minutes or first few minutes of the Rabbi's wonderful words. And I speak from experience. Jews have a tendency to be actions. I fall into that category. It's in my DNA. My family were known as actions, and the wise words of forgiveness that the Rabbi was trying to express and convey is something that we should all aspire for. Even just recently, there was a broigus. My sister lives in Florida, and my mother and sister. My mother's 92 years old, and she got a little bee in her bonnet about my sister, and it turned into a really quite an extreme family feud. But in the end, I sort of convinced my mother that, you know, we all have to forgive. We all have to overcome these issues. And I found both the words of our guest today rather quite inspiring. And peace starts with respect.
Correct.
I don't have a question. I'm making a statement and confirmation, but, you know, I enjoyed coming on.
Excellent. Excellent. Any further comments, Ilana? Oh, sorry, Rabbi.
One thing on what Morris said, 100% action is one of the problems. I'll just say one thing about that. I experienced saying I'm sorry myself to someone once, and in my head, I was right, obviously. And the problem for me to say I'm sorry was I was afraid that the guy will open his mouth and tell me how much I was wrong. And I said, and if he does that, then I'll tell him what I really think. Therefore, I was afraid to say I'm sorry, because then I'll tell him what I really think and I'll give it to him. And better maybe I don't say I'm sorry, just right. So I had this whole build-up understanding why I'm not an action, but I just don't want, you know, because I had a whole building in my head. And I went over and I said, I'm sorry. And the guy turned around and said, I'm also sorry. You know, I also should have been more careful. So often we build up this whole pile of cards as a whole building of cards that something's going to happen if I say I'm sorry. But the reality is I found most times, if not every single time, when you say I'm sorry, it just brings everything down, breaks all boundaries. You become a little bit more vulnerable, and the other person himself also becomes vulnerable, and you sort things out, because no one really enjoys a fight, or majority of people.
Exactly. Ilana.
It's more, I would like to ask actually Tamar, because it's hard for me because I read every day all the Israeli papers, and I'm kind of was born in Israel, in Jerusalem, and it's hard not to get, to a very bad mood sometimes. Even here, even today we heard the numbers of how so many people have been affected by COVID-19, and so many are now, the numbers in Victoria rising, and I'm looking in Israel now. So what do you think the role of the leaders right now, especially, I know in relation even to Tisha B'Av, like what's the role of a leader, in a time when there is a dispute, there is machloket, like you say in Hebrew, but because we can see there is quite a machloket right now in Israel, and I'm sure everyone who watched the news can see it. So what is in your eyes, is the role of the leaders right now, in the whole issue that's going on in Israel?
Wow, that's a big question.
Just a little bit.
No, it's a big question. Personally, I think that's another pain that comes from the destruction of the temple, and the fact that we don't have enough the presence of Hashem in our lives. Meaning, I think that we are in a generation that leaders are missed, that we don't find ourselves within the leadership. We don't connect to it, to their actions, nothing. And there is a disbelief. That's the biggest pain, that there is a disbelief between the people and all these leaders. And even people that you've voted for are no longer, representing you or caring about things that are difficult to you. There is a big economic crisis here in Israel, and the feeling is that they are all completely not interested in hearing about it and not understanding in what's going on within the people. And that is a great pain. I wish for them at least to be part of the people, to realize what are the great problems that people are going through here in Israel, of all stages, by the way. It's not only, you can't say that it's only this part of the public or a different part. No, everybody's going through very, very difficult times. I don't have one friend that is not going through something that is hard. I'm being honest. And the problem is the disbelief. And the problem is that we have a problem of communication and a problem of trust. And that is a big shame. So it goes back to the list of my prayers, that I turn to Hashem and say, please help us. This shouldn't look like that. More than that, sorry, I'm not sure I answered.
That's fantastic. We will probably have to end it there unless it's hi Ruth Parasolatus or Ruth. I think one last question. I have you under there as Lily Klein, but I don't think you look like a Lily.
All right. My name is Eitan. I was born in Palestine. My parents are after Palestine in 1932. I was born in a place called Hadera. I'm reading every day the Israeli news and I want to vomit. I cannot believe this is Israel. I was born there. And I'd like to ask a question, the Rabbi. Why so much hatred between the Haredim and the Chilonim? It is crazy. We both Jews. and it's written, Kol Yisrael Chaverim, Yisrael Arevim Ze Laze. Why? Can you explain me why so much hate? Can you explain it to me? And everything in the name of religion. Can you explain me, please? I'm sorry, it's hurting me. זה כואב לי.
אני אנסה להסביר לך את זה.
בבקשה. דרך אגב, כשאתה מדבר, אתה מתפלל, תדבר, אל תתפלל.
אוקיי.
בסדר.
תדע לך שגם כשלומדים...
English, please, English. I want the people to listen what we talk.
So I'll try and answer the question.
Please.
And I'll try to answer Ilana's question in it as well. I'll mix it together. And it's the following concept. There was a Holocaust survivor that was not connected to Judaism at all. He said he does not believe in the Jewish people. He does not believe in God. And when he was asked why, he told because when he was in the Holocaust, he saw a guy that had a pair of tefillin. And when he had this pair of tefillin, people wanted to put it on to get a little bit of energy, feel a little bit connected. And this man with the tefillin said, if anyone wants to put on the tefillin, they have to share with me their food that they had. Now, I don't have to explain to people that are older than me what that meant in the Holocaust to share a piece of their food. You guys were more connected to the Holocaust than I am. But obviously that was something very, very bad. To ask them to give from their food to put on the tefillin, what, you can't give every single guy? And there was lines and he would take from everyone a little bit of food. And he says, after I saw that, I was done. So he shared that with someone and the person turned around and said to him, why don't you look at it a little bit differently? What about all the people that were willing to give up their food to do such an amazing thing? Why look at one person doing the wrong thing? Why don't look at the people standing in the lines, the tens of people trying to do the right thing? And I think when we read the news, we're reading the story of the person holding the tefillin and charging everybody to put on a piece of bread, because that's what the news is. It wouldn't be interesting to share with you that a Haredi was friendly to a Chiloni, or that some people gave some of their food, or there's an organization that helps out people, or there's people that hug each other. I have families that are not religious, relatives that are not religious. I'm sure Tamar also has some family somewhere, and we all connect to each other, but the news won't share that story. I got news for you. That's not news. News is to share things that sound bad. So when you read the news, that's what happens. You're reading the story of that one person doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't feel like vomiting, because there's a lot of very special people in Eretz Israel. To live in Eretz Israel, you have to be a special individual. There's a lot of special people there. I grew up there. I grew up in Gush Etzion. I grew up with settlers, people that love their land, love their people that would do anything for anyone, would go out of the way. Haredi, Chiloni, Mizrahi, doesn't matter. The more we can not allow those bad messages come through to us, the more we can share our message of connection, the more we can share see another Jew and see him and be excited to see another Jew. And believe me, there is Haredis like that. I know in the news, maybe it's not like that, but I'm telling you, I met plenty of people that are like that. We just have to sometimes remember to not read that news and take that as the reality. If it wasn't interesting, they will not write it. They will not write something that's someone helping out someone else. Okay.
Even though it was related to the rabbi, may I comment, please?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Again, my personal life, I'm not Haredi, but I'm quite firm and I teach Torah. It's what I do. And I try my best. And my husband is 100% secular. Now, he calls God your imaginary friend, to the extent he's got a tattoo, he's got an earring, 100% Chiloni. Now, this is something that won't appear on the news because we've been asked many times to speak, but we don't want it because we believe that the quieter we are, the more blessing we've got. Therefore, we're not on the papers. But there are many, many people like us, and our families are the farthest that you can imagine. I come from a very frum family, mostly in Netanya, seriously, heavily frum. And his family, we call it, they don't finish Shema. You know, if you start the verse of Shema, they won't be able to finish it. Extremely secular, with all the respect. And our kids, thank God, they learn, they're religious kids, and they grow up in a religious school and everything, and they're frum as my, you know, as my best friend's kids frum. But they learn to have an uncle that is gay and grandparents that don't believe in God, and etc., etc. So these realities, they happen all the time. In order to live happily in Israel, I'll tell you what's my secret. We do not read the news. Because as the rabbi said, the news will always bring the one story of this one guy doing the wrong deed. But actually, in the streets, it's not the reality. It's not what's happening. And you're most welcome to my house in Sderot David HaMelech in Tel Aviv to see, to view within your eyes, you know, how it is that people live secular and religious together in respect. Be'ezrat Hashem for many more years. I hope I haven't done any damage talking about it.
No,
but I just had to say this comment.
All right, we'll have to, that will probably have to be the last question. I just asked, Ariella has just joined us. She's from our team, our lovely, I don't know what to call Ariella, she does everything. She's just going to share with you on us on the screen, our gala dinner, so you can see the lineup of the incredible guests. Ariella, she's there. 1 second. Coming. She's on 1 minute. Struggling? Okay, she's on mute. You're on mute. Okay.
Here we go.
There we go. Is it working? Right. Does everybody see?
Yeah.
Yofi. That is our lineup for gala dinner. We've got Lord John Mann from the UK government anti-Semitism SAR. We've got Jason Alexander from Seinfeld. We've got Lior Suchard, who's going to actually entertain us through the screen. We've got Gal Gadot, we've got Michael Aloni, who was Shtizel, in case anybody doesn't know who he is. I certainly know who he is. We've got Eden Alen, and we've got Hagit Yasu. So we are going to have the most incredible night, and you're all invited. Thank you, Ariella. I will just now ask our chair, Bella, to do the vote of thanks. This is Bella Erlacht, everybody. She's the chair of our group. Unmute.
Yeah, Billy, you have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Rabbi Tamar, that was amazing, very inspirational. And I guess in these terrible times of COVID-19, we do have time to reflect and to take on board all the things that you've said. The power of the word sorry is fascinating. I wonder how many of us use it with our own children, with our own families. And taking that a little bit further, the belief in ourselves and the circles that we live in, that's also an interesting concept, considering the times that we're in at the moment. And yes, you can say the newspapers tell one story, but there are stories there that affect us very deeply. And maybe by using the power of your thoughts, we might be able to interpret them a little bit differently. That was a wonderful presentation, very insightful. And I'll just finish by reiterating what Jackie said about the virtual gala night, September the 1st. Now, the theme of that night is building resilience and growing our future. And I think the topics today actually support that, if we think about it. So I do hope to see everybody at the gala dinner. But don't forget the functions before that. We've got a whole package coming up for you. Thank you, everybody. And thanks, Jackie, Ilana, and the whole team.
And last but not least, to just let you all know, we'll have another event. I know it's very soon, but we have an incredible event next week. You'll probably have the invite in your emails as you leave this meeting. And we will also, if you can bear to hear my voice again, I'll be on J Air tomorrow with Morris. I'll try not make too many silly jokes, but there'll be more information on the gala dinner and also this group on the radio tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Take care.